Hash Rate is sponsored by LEDGER. With the announcement of LEDGER Flex and LEDGER STAX, LEDGER gives you the best security on the planet for your crypto and identity. LEDGER Flex and STAX drive an e-ink screen with the same secure chip that's in your credit card and passport, except instead of protecting the secrets of banks and governments, LEDGER protects your secrets and your private keys. LEDGER supports Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and more than 200 other tokens. The secure touchscreen, plus the LEDGER Live app, means that whether you're buying your very first Bitcoin or doing your 2000th swap, you can do it securely and easily with your Ledger. And as always, use my link, shop.ledger.com/hashrate in the show notes to get the very best price whenever you buy a LEDGER Flex or STAX. And BAMP.FI's NUSD. NUSD is the Bitcoin dollar. Now you can hold dollars directly in your Bitcoin wallet on the Bitcoin chain. Swap between native Bitcoin and NUSD using just a Bitcoin wallet. No bridges, wrap coins, or centralized exchanges required. On the BAMP.FI website, you can swap NUSD with Tether and Athena's USDE, so there are easy ways in and out for you Ethereum people. NUSD is already supported by major Bitcoin DeFi protocols like DotSwap, and more added every day. Go to BAMP.FI to start your NUSD journey today. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hash Rate. My name is Mark Jeffrey. My guest today is Ian Rogers, CXO of LEDGER. Hello, Ian.
Hey, Mark. How are you? Good to see you.
I'm doing well. Good to see you, too. So I am personally a very big fan of LEDGER. I've used your products since, I think, 2015 is when they first appeared, something like that. And so how many Ledgers are there out there today, sort of total in the world?
There are about 7 million out there total in the world at the moment. So the company's been around. This is the 10-year anniversary of LEDGER. Its company's really always been about the same thing. The novel idea back 10 years ago was, Bitcoin was a few years old at that point, and it was dawning on people who were Bitcoin enthusiasts that protecting this, should it get extraordinarily valuable, would be very difficult with the machines that we have, on our desks and in our hands. Not because they're bad machines, but because they were designed for performance, not security. And private key technology and private key infrastructure is actually something that is probably long-term very transformative to humanity, but only if there's also security, right? So if you're using private keys to secure your value and your identity, then there becomes a bit of an existential problem, right? What are the mechanisms that protect that? So the idea was to use this technology that had been around since the 70s called smart card technology. It's the same technology that's in your credit card and your passport, but to apply that to cryptography. The result, which is LEDGER, it's a great and well-known product in the world of crypto, and thank you very much for being one of those users. But it's also it's sort of ideologically interesting in itself because it is exactly the same technology that is in your credit card and your passport. The LEDGER
is it the same? Is it the same as what's in my phone? So the secure element, is that similar or not?
Not really. I mean, that's and to really get into the technical details, you'd want to have our CTO on. But the way it's used is different in two ways. One, it's often used only as secure memory in something like a phone or even a competitive hardware wallet. And two, it's not programmable. Fundamentally, what LEDGER has done is built an operating system and a development environment on top of these secure chips, so that you can do things like build a Bitcoin app and build apps, for other crypto, but also things like we have the security key app now with LEDGER STAX, where you can tap and use it for passkeys, 2FA, that sort of thing. And so really what makes LEDGER different is that it protects the secrets of the individual. And that's what I was getting to and saying that it's quite I think it's an important technology ideologically as well, because it takes this technology, which is highly secure and, is used every day to protect the secrets banks, governments, et cetera, and it turns that around, puts an open development environment on top of it so that we can build applications to protect individuals. And that's fundamentally what Ledger's been doing for the past 10 years.
So you guys are in Nashville for Bitcoin Nashville. You have a big announcement, new product announcement. So go ahead, tell us all about your new product.
Yeah, so we announced Ledger STAX in December of 22 with the intention to launch it in March of 23. We had a supplier who told us no problem on the screen and we'll be out by March. But of course, then March became May and May became July and July became, okay, maybe this company isn't going to carry forward in this form anymore. And we've really been scrambling to get STAX into the market with a whole series of suppliers. So thankfully, we've done that. It's a good story. There's a 20-minute documentary on YouTube that I really encourage people to watch.
I watched it. It was great. And it sort of chronicles the struggle to bring it to market. And I want to get into some of the details that are in that video, but please continue.
Cool. Yeah. And it's also, just if you're interested in building things, I think it's an interesting video. I've sent it to a lot of friends in Silicon Valley who are not necessarily, interested in crypto, but come on, if you're in the business of building things, the story behind STAX is a great story.
Yeah. And hardware is just hard, man. Just the amount of problems you face, the manufacturing, the materials, it's just a really difficult thing.
Yeah, sidebar, I think people, they underestimate, they kind of forget about hardware, right? It was Mark Andreessen who said software is eating the world, and we've really said, okay, let's take the hardware for granted and let's focus on the software now for so many years. But as when it comes to security, the hardware that we have in our pockets and on our desks is insufficient. So we are in the hardware business. We are in the business of bringing secure hardware to market. And hardware is really difficult, and it does take a long time. But if you get it right, it can be a great business, and it can be very difficult for others to keep up with you because of those difficulties. So I think that really is where Ledger finds itself, especially now because we announced at Bitcoin Nashville an additional device to the lineup, which is Ledger Flex. So what we have now in the full lineup is we have the Ledger Nano S Plus, which is kind of the old school long with the swivel. You push OK with the two buttons. Also in that family is Ledger Nano X, which is basically the same device except with Bluetooth. And now we have two devices with secure e-ink touchscreens. So there's Ledger STAX, which we started shipping 2 or 3 months ago, and now Ledger Flex, which has a great UI just like Ledger STAX, but it's more affordable because it doesn't have the same industrial design as STAX, which STAX has this super innovative organic TFT curved e-ink display, where Flex has a 2.8 inch, a beautiful 2.8 inch e-ink display, but it's less expensive and simpler to produce. And we have that full lineup now where we have the Ledger Flex at $249, and then you've got the STAX, which is $399, but comes with a case to protect that plastic screen. So we really have all the price points covered. They all have the same security model. So from a security perspective, whether it's a Nano S Plus or a STAX, you're getting the same level of security, but from a form factor and an ease of use, having a secure e-ink touchscreen is a big step forward.
Yeah, so the Ledger STAX, it looks like a credit card, and the screen, it's e-ink, so it's sort of like a Kindle. It's I guess it's the same technology as a Kindle. And the thing that was really interesting in the documentary to me was that basically the screen curves around the credit card like form factor of the device. So along the side, sort of like the book spine, if you will, of the STAX device, that is actually active e-ink display also.
Yeah,
which that's crazy.
So what Tony had in mind when he designed STAX.
Who's Tony? First of all, you should talk about him for a second.
Yeah, so Tony, the STAX was designed by our good friend Tony Fadell, who was the inventor of the iPod, the co-inventor of the iPhone. And the inventor of Nest, and so he's like the guy when it comes to form factor
electronic devices.
He really is
none
incredible.
higher.
He released a book a couple of years ago called Build, which does a really good job of explaining his approach to building products. But I've been living that book over the past 3 years. Tony and I just became friends. We both moved to Paris right at the same time. So we became friends. Our families became friends, and we have the same passion around technology, and including digital assets and digital ownership, and therefore digital security, but also other things in life, music, etc. So we've it was really, really great to get to see him work on this project, because, like I said, you can read about it in Build, but it's incredible to feel it. I think we're quite lucky to do it. I think also, though, it was great for Tony, and I don't want to speak for him, but I've certainly heard him say that working with the team at Ledger, who are as uncompromising on security as Tony is on, as you said, form factor and ease of use. I always say Tony's the only person who can imagine both the circuit board and the billboard at the same time. That's just the way his brain works. He's really always thinking about, what does a user need? What problem does this solve? How do we solve, more important problems for people? How do we solve, problems that more people have than, just these 5 people? That sort of thing is exactly how Tony thinks. At the same time, the Ledger team is absolutely uncompromising about security. And if you listen to our CTO, Charles Guillaume speak, you'll see what we do both, offensively and defensively on security. And I think, frankly, you can see it in other products. If you look at other hardware products for security that have come out over the past couple of years, pretty much everything is a compromise in comparison to Ledger. And I think, that's what we're really driving toward is how do we improve ease of use while, never compromising on either security or self-custody. Every bull cycle, people do compromise on security, self-custody, or both. And they've always got, they're not dumb people that do this, right? They've got rational reasons, like, okay, this is the only way we're going to, quote unquote, onboard the masses. But, we see where that lands in almost every case. I think you have 2 things. You have trusted custodians, and then you have truly secure self-custody. Everything in the middle is really dangerous. And I think, we'd be hard pressed to come up with 5 truly trusted custodians after what we all went through in 2022.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second, but let's get to the device.
The design. I wanted to. You asked about the form factor specifically, and one of the things I love about this device personally is this is the device that Tony described to me when he had the idea for the device, and that is somewhat amazing only because we really kicked the tires on the idea. We said, okay, are we sure? We went through an industrial design process with a great industrial design firm in London called LEDGER. And we looked at, at least 6 other designs, maybe, 8 or 10 other designs, different shapes, one where the curve went around the top instead of around the side, et cetera. But this is exactly what Tony described to me. And his reasoning was, it needs to denote value. So it should be the size and the shape of a credit card. And what is that future, stack of cash with the band around it? If you're trying to think about that kind of stack of cash, but you're thinking about digital value, what does that look like? Also, it's a nice nod to the fact that many Ledger users have more than one. And generally for account segregation for one reason or another. It might be, a mint or sort of more promiscuous wallet and a vault wallet. There might be colder storage. There might be, mom, Papa Bear, Mama Bear, Baby Bear, whatever. There's all kinds of same reason in our lives. We have, banking account, checking account, savings account, and a brokerage account, right? We do account segregation all the time. But so they do actually have this, are
they sticking together? Are they magnetically sticking together now?
The magnet tension is so satisfying.
Oh, wow. Hold it up a little bit. Yeah. So it's
and they just stick together perfectly.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it gives you great, so all stacks come with a case as well. So the magnets give you a nice, nice opportunity with accessories as well. So, like this kind of just sticks in there.
Super cool.
It's fully magnet. I don't know if you have like the kind of fidget spinner thing of opening and closing the lid of your AirPods, but I promise you'll do it with this as well.
I do that actually. It's
I think hilarious. We all do. One of my favorite stories when we were designing this in the early days, there's a friend sitting at my dining table, and there were two of these sitting on the table, and he was just playing with them for 45 minutes, and finally he goes, "What are these anyway?" So he had no idea, but as fidget spinners alone, they're quite satisfying. But we really went for something similar with Ledger Flex. So from a design perspective, this is Flex.
So this is the cheaper, this is the less expensive, I should say, model, right?
Correct. This is the less expensive model.
Can you hold them up next to each other? Are they
without
the same
curved
size?
screen? Absolutely.
Well, I just want to see how they compare.
Yeah. So
so it's a little smaller.
Yeah, it's a little smaller. Screen's a little smaller. But this is a really beautiful device that that feels really industrial. So it is less expensive. It doesn't feel any cheaper. So if I turn it on here and then log in, you can see how it works.
Oh wow! So that's what the OS, because I haven't seen it turned on yet. I've just seen pictures of it. Yeah, that's nice.
There is a beautiful swipe as well. So it
is
really,
that Bluetooth? Are they both Bluetooth as well?
They're both Bluetooth. They also both have NFC. So that you can, which is very handy for the security key feature. Yeah. So for logging in passkeys, 2FA, you can just tap on your phone and do that. And also similarly,
question about the Bluetooth for a second. Mm-hmm. Does the Bluetooth work with my desktop, or is it just Bluetooth to
not yet? Phone? No. Okay. So it's a great question. Having Bluetooth on desktop is something that we endeavor to do. Frankly, I'm not sure we'll ever get there on Windows. But on Mac, that is something that is doable.
That's what I thought. Because actually, I bought the Bluetooth, like the older Ledgers, and I was actually surprised. I was like, why isn't that working with my PC, my Mac? And I didn't realize it was only so. And I don't. Can you tell me? Do you know why it is that it doesn't? Why that's harder?
The reason is just the Bluetooth support on your PC is really unstable. So actually getting it to work, for consistently for people is just something we've never been able to do on Windows in particular. So it's always been on the to-do list. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not sure we'll ever get there on Windows, but I do hope we get there on Mac.
Cool. I look forward to that day.
Yeah. So those are the devices that we have there now. We do still have the Nano S Plus and the Nano X. I think that for many people that have been with us for the last 5+ years, they're very happy with those devices. They're inexpensive, and we continue to make those people happy. But I think also I think the way to think about Ledger is you always have to think that we're always thinking there are roughly 500 million people in the world of crypto today. We believe this next cycle is going to bring in another 500 million. But of the 500 million that are here today, there are 10 million or less that are using secure hardware. The vast majority of people are using exchanges. And as we know, not your keys, not your coins. We would all like to see people get into secure self-custody, but that's a pretty big gap to bridge that 500 million to 10 million. So we're always thinking, how do you turn 10 million into 100 million? And, for us, clicking OK with two thumbs is a clear border, to get across. And so having touchscreens that are powered by that same secure element and using the same security model as the Ledger Nano is high on our list. And with these two devices, we're finally there.
Yeah. So you're going more for the average consumer rather than crypto nerds like me who are sort of, used to your world. And this is something more like, an iPod or something like that.
I think even for crypto nerds like you and me, we need these devices because we're using them more than we used to, right? A ledger was originally something that you would put some value on and put in your closet and then come back to it in a couple of years and see how much your value is worth. Whereas now, we're signing transactions every day. I sent some crypto to a friend this afternoon to pay them for, something that we did today. So, it's becoming, normal in our lives to, whether it's, claiming an airdrop or interacting with a smart contract somewhere around something, doing, more frequent buys. Like we are interacting with our digital devices in a different way every day. Also, I think the security key app is a real, game changer for why do I need a ledger? It's if you look, Google and Apple are pushing hard on passkeys at the moment. It's everybody. It's a bit of a browser war in a way. Everybody wants to grab your password and store them for you.
Yeah.
But the reality is that private key infrastructure completely, fixes the web in so many ways when we finally get there. I had to log into the airline site and add a piece of luggage to my ticket the other day. And, I was just thinking about everything I had to do to make that happen and how, private key infrastructure makes all of that better. Like the looking for the password that, I created with the password manager, the looking for the frequent flyer number, the payment that wouldn't go through the first 2 times, it's like you realize we've come to accept how fundamentally broken the web is. But simply protecting your logins with your Ledger instead of, a password manager is massive. Simply, for me, my Twitter account, my login.gov account, these are all, the 2FA of those things is all managed with my Ledger. And, my passkeys of, things like my personal Gmail account, like those are managed by my Ledger today. So, again, not this, and this also is another reason for having multiple ledgers, because you're not going to be doing that with the same Ledger device that you have, your deep cold storage bag on. But to have a device which has that additional security for logins is a no-brainer.
So you mentioned earlier that there's 7 million devices out there, and there are a total of 10 million people using hardware devices. Does that mean Ledger currently enjoys 70% market share? Is that correct?
We don't know for sure, but that's our estimation is, we're there. I think, to be honest, 10 million people using secure hardware is probably being generous, because I believe that we probably are around 70% of the market. We also know that, the amount of people that I encounter when I tell them, that I work at Ledger, they go, "Oh wow, I have 5 ledgers." It's almost exactly. So how many people is it really? Those 7 million devices sold. We think we probably sell about 1.2 ledgers per person.
I think I've bought. In all honesty, I think I've bought about 20 total since 2015.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Well, first of all, thank you. But second of all, you're not alone. Those of us in crypto do have many ledgers, and we've given away many ledgers. We give them as gifts.
Yes.
We help others onboard. That's actually something I'd like to do from a marketing standpoint, is help people. I think that would be a great thing to do. But I think also if you really dig into it, let's say, okay, maybe it's not even 10 million. And then how many of those people have good operational security? They actually have, because we hear the horror stories too of the people who they've, misplaced their recovery phrase and their 2 PIN code attempts in, to trying to unlock their device, and they're sweating bullets. You know what I mean? So, so I think, really that getting people, getting more people into secure self-custody, but getting them there with peace of mind is important to us too, which is also why we created Ledger Recover, which was controversial, but I think the right move if you're trying to go from 5 to 10 million people, or 10 million people, most of whom have poor operational security, to 100 million. Like these are the kinds of innovations that we need.
Yeah, actually, I do want to talk about Ledger Recover, because I think it's important we go over that for a little bit. But
sure.
Before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about something that stood out to me in the video about producing the Ledger STAX product, and that was that the secure element drives the screen directly, and that seemed to be something that was made a big deal about in the video. And alongside that, the other thing that sort of popped into my head was, I have heard, and I don't know if this is true because I haven't confirmed it, if you have a Trezor and you have an oscilloscope, and if you have access to the Trezor device, you can actually get into it or figure out what the private key is just by accessing the EE. Is the fact that the secure element drives the touchscreen designed to defeat a similar oscilloscope, or is that a different phenomenon?
You're touching on the right thing here. So let me try to be factual as well as generous as well, because the reality is, and I want to be clear about this, is that if you are using a hardware wallet, you are more secure than if you are keeping crypto on your phone only or on your computer only. That's, there's an order of magnitude difference there, and my goal certainly isn't to disparage other hardware wallets, but you should know what the technology inside of your devices is. So let me explain the difference in the device and why, to your point, Mark, is it interesting that this screen is being driven by the same chip that's in your credit card. So again, if you this is a test device here. If you log in, you can see. So it really is. Look, it's a signing device. So I'm not playing video games on this, but that is exactly the point. This is powered by a chip which was designed for security, not for performance, where your phone is powered by a chip that was designed for performance. So it is that, as I said, that smart card technology, the secure element that's in your credit card or your passport, and that is a device, or those are chips that have been around for tens of years. They are in dozens of billions of devices. You probably have a couple of them in your pocket right now.
Sure.
And so they are very good at security. And again, what Ledger does is build an operating system and a development environment on that so that we can build applications and you can build applications and we can use this secure element technology to protect individuals. Okay, so you need three things to be secure. One, you have to have this secure chip which generates the private key and protects the private key inside of that chip. You need to have a secure OS running on that secure element so that the cryptographic operations are happening there, and I'll explain in a second why that's important and what others do. And the third is you need a secure screen, a screen that you can trust to say yes or no to a transaction. So that is exactly how Ledger works. The private key is generated by the secure element using, a very advanced random number generator, which includes, includes hardware, which is meant to produce entropy. That so it's and that that defines
which is actually super important. A lot of people don't realize this, but random number generators sometimes are not really that random. They perform deterministic calculations. And so getting that right is half the battle.
Well, so there's a very real world example of that. Ledger's security team last year found an exploit in Trust Wallet. So if you search for this online, you'll find the story about it. And they had made a very simple mistake. They had just defined the address space for creating addresses too small. So, when you type a variable, when you're coding, you can, choose the wrong type. That means a smaller number of bits. That means a smaller address space, and a smaller address space means you could just brute force walk every address that the wallet had ever created. So our team worked with the Trust Wallet team for a long time to try to, before that was disclosed, fix the bug. It's called a process called responsible disclosure, where you alert the third party, you don't steal the money or alert the public or any of those things, and you try to keep people safe. But to your point, it's an example of why this thing you might take for granted, just creating a random number, how hard can it be? I used to do that with basic programming.
Yeah, it's actually it's so hard. So here's a little factoid, because I just found this out recently. So apparently, Google uses lava lamps to generate random numbers. Yeah. So because that is the most random thing that you can key off of. Yeah,
there was a site on the internet in the 90s where you could actually, it was like an API that just had a camera pointing at a lava lamp to pull the random number generation. So the point is that creating your private key inside of a secure element has value, whereas other hardware wallets in the market, the way they work is they have secure memory, but then they have this general purpose MCU chip where the computation is done. So it's basically the same kind of chip which is in your remote control for your television. It's a chip that was not designed for security, but it's leveraging the secure storage of the secure element. But the private key is likely generated in that MCU. The cryptographic computations are done in the MCU. And yes, your private key is protected by the secure element. And yes, that is much more secure than if you were doing it, in a software-only model, using no secure chip at all. But it is different than what Ledger does, which is it does the private key generation in the secure element, the cryptographic operations in the secure element, and that same secure element is powering the screen. So there is no hardware or third-party software that is in that pipeline between the chip and the screen. Part of building STAX was funny. We have a really great team that, for example, one of the first engineers who ever worked on the iPod with Tony worked on this device with us. He's actually the one that got the magnet tension so perfectly correct. And I'm very thankful for him and all of his both experience and obsession on the product. But when the Ledger security team, or when the display company sent over the display drivers, the Ledger security team said, "No, thank you." And, the Apple guys were like, "What are you talking about? No, thank you. Of course you need the display drivers." And the Ledger security team was, "Oh, we're not using those. You think we're going to use some software that came from China from someone we don't have any idea who wrote it? Nope, we're writing those security drivers ourselves." So that's what I mean when I say that the Ledger team is really uncompromising when it comes to security. Doing the cryptographic operations inside of the secure element is also important, and it answers your question about what are called side channel attacks. And if you look on our YouTube channel, Donjon, Donjon, it's French for dungeon. That's where the security the security experts at Ledger live and work. But there are some videos there about side channel attacks, which is how you can
Is that the oscilloscope thing I was talking about earlier?
Exactly. Yeah. So you can hit a chip with a laser and get it to give up the passcode, basically. But it's exactly because if you did that to a secure element, it freaks out. It actually has countermeasures to prevent a whole host of attacks. Things like, not being able to kind of listen in electronically and, hear which buttons are being, pressed at which time. Am I being hit with a laser? And it's like, where a normal chip, if it has an error, it will throw an error. And then you catch the error, right? That's the way programming generally works. Where a secure element, they're sort of notoriously difficult to program because when they encounter an error like that, they just shut down. Or even, if they really feel like they're under attack, they will actually just wipe themselves out.
Wow!
They have a bunch of countermeasures built in that make them very difficult to program because errors are truly not allowed, right?
Wow! I didn't know that. So this thing has countermeasures built into it, and it'll kill itself rather than give up its secrets.
Yeah, so secure elements are they're built with countermeasures. Now, this also addresses another kind of controversy that we deal with every day, which is people saying, "Yeah, but Ledger isn't open source." Well, we are 95+% open source, but because we use this smart card technology, we're not allowed to open source the code that interacts with the chip, particularly around those countermeasures. These chip manufacturers, which have built up this IP over tens of years, they don't give that IP away very easily, or at all, actually. And so we are not allowed to open source that code, which is interfacing the chip in that way. So Ledger Live is open source. Ledger Recover is open source. The dashboard that, the thing that you see, when I unlock this device, that's the dashboard, right? That's all open source. So, we have and will continue to open source as much as we can, but
Sorry, I just want to stop you there because you are open source in a certain way, probably the only way, the way that matters most, to my understanding, and that is if Ledger, the company, goes out of business and stops producing new hardware, there are software versions of the Ledger device that I can feed my private key into. I'm not dead in the water if I can never get another hardware device, right?
Correct. Both on retail and on enterprise. You don't need Ledger to exist to own your funds. That's what I say when I also say we don't compromise on self-custody. You don't need us to exist, to own your funds. So I completely agree. That is actually the most important way. And I'd also say that if you really look at, and if you do the research and look deeply into the choices to where we have chosen to be open source. We're big fans of open source. I mean, I personally came to Bitcoin through an O'Reilly book. I'm an old open source nerd, and we care a lot about open source. At the same time, we're not going to make a choice to be less secure just to be open source. We won't choose the wrong architecture just to be open source. And so, our choice of these, secure element chips and, doing the private key generation and the cryptographic operations inside of those chips, is what means we're not 100% open source. We're only 95% plus open source. But for us, that's exactly the right trade-off, because we are a security company, not an open source company.
Yes. So the screen on the new devices, that is a plastic screen, right? So it's not like my iPhone where if I drop it, it can crack. It's more like my Kindle, which I think is also a plastic screen, which those screens never crack, right?
No, it's actually, your Kindle is also glass. So,
is it? Okay.
Yeah. So this is the first organic TFT ever to come to market.
What is a TFT? What is that?
So that's it means your screen basically.
Okay. I just never heard that term before.
The transistor field which creates your screen. And because basically you have a grid of dots here, right? And the dots change color. Now in the case of e-ink, it's a bistable technology, so they're actually little capsules in there that change, and they stay that way permanently. That's why when you lock the screen and you end up with whatever they change to, it's drawing zero power now. So you could leave this thing it'll stay like this, and you can leave this thing in your closet for 6 months, and it'll still look like this, and it will still have just normal battery drain. It's no drain that's due to the image on the screen.
You just need battery to change what's on the screen,
correct,
not to continuously power the display. Like a regular display needs continuous power. This does not.
Correct. So that's the e-ink portion of the way the display works. Now that is exactly the same as your Kindle, and the Ledger Flex is a glass screen just like your Kindle. So it's silicon on glass, whereas this is an organic substrate on plastic. So with that, you get a couple things. One, you get the ability to curve it. And, so no one's ever brought this technology to market. It came out of Cambridge 25 or so years ago, and there have been some attempts to bring it to market, but it's until now, never been brought to market. I actually made that little video because I had dinner with the president of e-ink, or the CEO of e-ink, who features in the video, in Taipei. And he said, Ian, organic TFT technology is still unproven. And I was like, don't do this to me, man. Like we're shipping these things in a couple of weeks. Don't tell me it's unproven. He said, well, it's unproven until you guys ship. I was like, okay. I can accept that.
Oh my God.
But the technology has been around, and that was also why the delay for us, because it was not a question of, is this possible? It was a question of, can it be mass produced? And that is a question of yield. It's a question of, if you try to make 100 of them, how many good shippable units do you get? And how can you become more and more consistent in that process? Now, what's also interesting about that process is this is the only screen in the world on the planet today that's made at less than 100 degrees Celsius. Most glass screens are made at 350, 400 degrees Celsius. So, in many ways, this is the most environmentally friendly screen technology on the planet. Now, we're not touting that. We're not making enough devices for us to, go, hey, look at us. We're so environmentally friendly. That's not we're, maybe someday we'll have that scale, but today we don't. But it is incredibly interesting to think about the use of this technology in the future. You have a plastic that's curvable on pretty much anything. And so you can absolutely imagine, AR glasses, in the future that can, contain this technology, being mass produced, and the fact that it is made at, a 1/3 to 1/4 the temperature, less etching, and a number of other things in the process that make it, a better, technology for the, just from a manufacturing standpoint. You can imagine a lot of uses for this organic TFT technology in the future, plastic screens. This is also why we are insisting that when we sell it, it comes with a case, because to your point, people are very familiar how their glass screens behave. We have them in our phones. We have them in our Kindles. This, you're not going to drop it and crack it like you will your phone screen. But if you put it in your backpack with your keys, you might scratch it. It's plastic, right? Yep. So that's why we also want to give you a case with your purchase so that you just take care of it. I don't want you to be disappointed, when you realize how the screen behaves.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. Okay, I just got one last question about this, and then I want to move on to another topic. So, personal interest. One of my sort of big focuses right now, just sort of personally, is watching this whole eruption on Bitcoin of Bitcoin Fi. So, we had BRC20s to begin with, then we had Runes, and Runes launched like 6 or 7 weeks ago. And we're starting to see the rudiments of the same sort of DeFi explosion that we saw in Ethereum. So, we have NUSD, which is the Bitcoin dollar. It's a synthetic stable on Bitcoin. There's lending. There's a bunch of meme coins, obviously, like Dog Go to Moon and stuff like that. In my Ledger Live, will you at some point, how interested are you in sort of when something explodes like the Runes thing has? How interested are you in supporting that quickly? And do you support Runes right now? I don't think you do, like natively inside of Ledger Live. And how do you view sort of new things like that are erupting, I guess, is the more general question.
It's a great question. So I'll try to give you a complete answer. So first of all, we're big believers in Bitcoin generally. So we want to see Bitcoin succeed. We're all at Ledger. We're all Bitcoiners, and we want to see Bitcoin succeed. We have had, I think, the best Bitcoin support of any hardware wallet for years now, whether it's, we're the first to support Taproot. We're the first to support Miniscript. We've just released an implementation, called Musig. We have, so we really, try to stay up on and lead development. Now, what that ends up with is kind of things like where we are with Runes, where you have, and we are an open development platform, right? So any wallet can connect to Ledger, and the code for the Bitcoin plugin on Ledger is also open source as well. So there's a lot of opportunities for that to progress, whether we're doing it or other people are doing it. But you generally end up exactly in the situation where we are right now with ordinals and Runes, which is you can store them on your Ledger but you're using a third-party wallet.
Yeah, you got to use Unisat wallets or in
exactly.
Chrome or whatever. But I do use a Ledger in conjunction with
exactly.
that.
Same for me. Yeah. So for my ordinals, I'm using Xverse and my Ledger. I've got both a Mint wallet and a Vault wallet for NFTs, and I have Bitcoin on each, and I use Xverse to do that. And then then we work on the support for Ledger Live, and of course it's balanced against other priorities. The good news is that it's possible, right? Even if you need to use a third party wallet, so it's not it's not impossible for people to do, but we would like it to be a first class citizen inside of Ledger Live. Now Ledger Live is also open source, so if other people want to prioritize their time and contributing to that, they certainly can. But ultimately, it's about us prioritizing that. So, I think it's a couple things. I think we need to actually be better kind of internal Bitcoin evangelists. We have so many Bitcoin evangelists at Ledger, but I would say it's both a strength and a weakness for us that we support, so many chains, because, it's funny, like, Mark, me from prior days, digital music days. But one of the things
we didn't get into that, but yes, we've known each other for a very long time.
One of the things I loved about working at Winamp was we were building tools to help you listen to music. I never told you what music to listen to, right? So even though I'm a music snob, right? And if you want me to tell you what music to listen to, I absolutely will. My software doesn't, right? There's a separation of church and state between, me and as an individual and my opinions. But what I need to do as a platform provider is, provide you a platform and provide you the tools and allow you to do your own research and do what you need to do. We believe in, freedom broadly. Now with that though, is that sometimes we're a little too agnostic. We're solving problems across the board when, there's an incredibly interesting problem to be solved in this thing that we all love called Bitcoin. And we want to devote resources there. So we're always making those trade-offs. But that's the job. we love it. And generally speaking, like I said, when it comes to things like Taproot, Miniscript, like we're leaders. Like we were first. We were there day one, and I don't believe anyone's really followed us, down there since. Right now,
as far as I know, no. Yeah,
pulling that all the way through to Ledger Live, that's a challenge. Another way, to double click on it for people is there are many levels at which you can interact with Ledger. So you can build, if you're a chain, you can build an application on top of the operating system and be a Ledger application on a Nano or a Flex or a STAX. You can integrate into Ledger Live. So you're a token, you can send, you can receive, you can stake, you can swap, etc. Perhaps you have a DApp, right? So, okay, now I want to be able to, bring that DApp into Ledger Live like we have with 1inch and many others. And then, finally, I'm a third-party wallet, and I want to support Ledger inside of my third-party wallet. So, I am Robbie, MetaMask, Xverse, Temple Wallet, whoever, right? You go down. I mean, Ledger really is a checkbox feature for any software wallet at this point. Coinbase Wallet. So those are all the different ways that you can interface with Ledger, and we are about trying to make all of those more robust all the time. For example, we're working, very closely with a number of foundations on getting more functionality, more broadly. Solana Foundation as a great example. We don't have SPL and token extensions, and we should have had it by now, right? So working, on us, how do we get better at that and become faster at that? And working with them, how do we do this? How do we do this together? But also, working with tons of third parties so that our users have great functionality like buying crypto, swapping crypto, staking crypto, lending. We have a credit card, bringing more and more features into Ledger Live so you can do whatever it is you would like to do with your crypto with Ledger. Again, we don't want to tell you what to do, but we would like to empower you to do what it is you're interested in doing securely and to and from self-custody.
Okay, quite the answer. So thank you for that.
No, thank you for the question.
Yeah. So let's go to, some harder questions now. So something like a year and a half ago, you guys released or announced a new product called Ledger Recover. And the idea was, for those who don't know, is, if you have consumers, regular people in the regular world who are buying Ledger devices and they don't have good sort of personal security because they use it like they use their iPhone. They're not really thinking about it the same way crypto people do, and they lose their seed phrase. There's no way for them to get it back. However, if they use Ledger Recover, if they subscribe to this new service, now there is a way for them to get it back. And all of a sudden, all the crypto people like me heard that and went, "Wait a minute." There's the only way you could possibly be doing that is by somehow storing my private key, perhaps encrypted, or probably encrypted, definitely encrypted on your end, but still it's in your hands, not mine. And you would do this via a firmware upgrade to my Ledger device, which might mean, oh my God, Ledger could just send a firmware update to my device and steal my private keys. And they could have done this at any time. And there was a huge flurry of speculation about that. Tell me, what happened there, and why is my crypto secure still on a Ledger device, and why can you not grab my private keys?
It's a great question. Very, very well said as well in terms of encapsulating what the controversy was, because I think that we were quite prepared to have a conversation around, is Ledger Recover for you? Right? Because we believe it's for a new user who's coming in for tomorrow, a user who has, a relatively small amount of funds, and they're not comfortable, at being the stewards of their recovery phrase, et cetera. So we kind of know who that customer is. And I think that one of the ironies in this is I think every one of us crypto people know who that customer is. We probably have that person in our life, that person that we don't want to be tech support for. And we might just send them to Coinbase, when if they come, or we might go, hey, have you heard of the ETF? But we do know that, secure self-custody would be better for them. So for us, we said, okay, well, how can we get everyone potentially into secure self-custody? And I don't think this is the only way to do it, and you'll probably see us You have other ways of helping people do this as well. But this is a great one for, many. If you look at the people who have less than $10,000 of value, less than $50,000 of value on Coinbase. I mean, you're talking about, 99% of that 500 million when we talk about how many people are in crypto. These are the people that are actually out there. So we were prepared to have a conversation around who is Ledger Recover for, and is it for you? What we weren't prepared to have the conversation on, and this is our own naivete, was, yeah, but Ledger, we thought you were magic. And now you just told us you're not magic. We thought that people had enough of a kind of casual idea of how, especially the hardcore users that were offended by Ledger Recover. We did think that there was a more broad understanding of how the wallet actually worked. And just the simple fact that if your wallet provider is your attacker, you're in really bad shape. You don't stand a chance if that's the case. So this does come down to trust and, who in the chain, do you trust? So Ledger Recover is an optional feature. So that's the first and most important point, is that if you don't opt into it, then you're not affected by it. Then nothing changes. It's $10 a month. So it's also not just like opt in. Like you've got to really opt in, pay with a credit card, upload your identification. Like no one is going to accidentally turn on Ledger Recover. Like that's not something that's going to happen. Don't worry. Like you're not going to wake up one day and went, unless you blacked out and done a lot of work while you were blacked out, then no, you're not going, that won't have happened. And the way that it works is it takes your recovery phrase basically and encrypts it, shards it into 3, puts it with 3 different custodians in 3 different jurisdictions. And it's a 2 of 3 scheme where you need 2 of the 3 in a Ledger device to reconstruct it. So you back it up with your identity and you recover it with your identity. And all of that is open source. All of that has been peer reviewed. And another thing that we noticed at the time of that it was launched is that there were a lot of people who had exactly the reaction that you had, Mark, which is like, wait, how is this possible? And what does this being possible mean?
Yes.
Which I think is the right way to put it.
Yeah.
Whereas the security and cryptography community went, well, of course that's possible. I mean, any wallet could do that. That's, if you can sign a transaction, then your wallet has your private key. That's what a wallet does. A wallet has your private key. And so I think a bit of a silver lining here is that maybe there was some education on private key security and why it's important, because that is exactly why it's important. Whomever has your private key can do what they want to with it, right? So, Ledger has a security model around your private key where we do not do anything with your private key without your explicit consent on a secure screen. That is the promise of Ledger. That is why we exist, is to make that possible. However, because of that model, we hear the horror stories from users who have made mistakes every day. The example that I just told on Peter McCormick's podcast with Charles was one that he had sent to me about, it was a company who had their treasury on a Ledger, crypto company has their treasury on a Ledger. Now you might go, who has their treasury on a Ledger? But there are a lot of crypto companies who do. Exactly. And they had a long explanation for why the recovery phrases had been thrown in the trash, and they were now 2 PIN codes deep, and they wanted to know, what do we have for them? And then we said, I'm sorry, but we don't have anything for you. And they wrote back and said, maybe that's just your PR stance. But you actually do have something for me. So I'll sign an NDA if you want. And, Charles wrote back, I'm sorry, but our devices are specifically architected to guard against us having this kind of access, right?
Well, let me ask you a question, because you said 2 things which in my mind sound contradictory. So you said that if your attacker is your hardware wallet provider, you don't stand a chance, and there's nothing we can do. Could you not craft new firmware for that customer that wants to recover their keys and say, here you go, upload this firmware, and now we can get at your private keys?
No, because they would need to install that firmware they would need to be able to log into their device.
So you can't really force an upgrade. There's no way to do it. Yes.
Yeah, and so also then that also, you would have to have a ton of the considerations that are in the pipeline of how we produce operating system and firmware and go through all of the security checks again to make sure that that's not possible. Right. All we have, everything
is good. That's good. I actually like this answer, and that's great. It's not good for the guy who lost their keys.
No, exactly.
But that's on them.
Well, this is my point. This is exactly why we made Ledger Recover, because we wanted to have a way that the user could consent to a backup existing, with that backup not being in the hands of any one person, including Ledger, with the backup only being able to be retrieved by by the user themselves in their device. Because you also it must still be self-custody, right? At the end of the day, like that's the other thing that you need to achieve.
Yeah. So just to finish up this segment, so if a government came to Ledger and ordered you to take all the coins out of my ledger in my house, there's no way you could service that request.
The answer must be, we have no way to do that. Right.
That is the right answer.
If the government comes to us and says, can you tie this, can you tell me Mark's wallet address? The answer is, I have no way to do that. So we have, it's not just security, it's also privacy. But this is what, we and the technical team, and the Donjon think about, all day, every day, is both security and privacy. Without self-custody, security, and privacy, in our view, you don't have freedom. This is our belief. It's why I work at the company. It's why we, why it exists. I mean, you and I grew up in the same Web 2 world. It's not quite the internet that we had in mind, but that's okay, because I think it's evolutionary always, right? But I really think that, and look, you and I are also a part of the reason that you don't own DVDs and compact discs. What our previous jobs was sort of, getting rid of ownership in certain sectors, right? But digital ownership is real, and you can't put the toothpaste back into the tube. We will have digital ownership in our digital lives. Bitcoin, on top of that, then Bitcoin alone is probably the most extraordinary invention, story, brand of my lifetime, maybe of the last 1,000 years. I personally believe that. If that's the case, then you must have self-custody. And if you have self-custody, then you must have security, because self-custody without security it just means that the ownership is fleeting. All right. So that's kind of how we walk the path, in terms of, what we try to build and what we try to aim for. But also if 10 million people have that, or, God forbid we go from, 10 million people in secure self-custody to 8 million people, that's the wrong direction, right? We really need that 10 million to grow to 100 million. And that's, if you look at everything that we do through that lens, then I think it makes sense. Ledger Recover included.
Yeah, I share your ideals, and I commend you and Ledger for doing the right thing and being very good actors in the space. And when I personally heard about the Ledger Recover kerfuffle, being a Ledger user, I was immediately concerned. But at the same time, the back of my head was like, I don't know what the answer here is yet, but I'm sure Ledger has my back. Like, that was sort of like, I just don't know how they do, but like, I just didn't believe that that you guys would betray your ideals. So
yeah, I appreciate that, and we need to make sure people understand that. I think it's difficult, in crypto Twitter to do that. So we struggle a bit, But also I think that the right thing wins in the end, and you in the end you get, results are what matters. You get judged on is it true or not. And so we really tried, and I think we made a mistake there with the communication as well. It's interesting. won't belabor it, but it's something I've thought about endlessly, because we actually had a story in Wired a week before the kerfuffle, and no one noticed. Like, we basically announced this product in Wired a week before, and no one noticed. Yeah. And then it went into the release notes in a way that was too vague, and then that's when things really, really blew up. And I think the very simple solution to that, if you look at the way that we've done clear signing this year as an alternative, we haven't done anything in the code yet, but we've been talking about it incessantly. So we first mentioned it in December. We've put every idea we've had on the topic out into the public. We've invited partners, including other hardware wallets, to come with us on that journey. We did a request for comment on our proposal to deliver clear signing. We just presented it at the EthCC last week. And ultimately, it becomes part of the code. But I think that is the approach we should have taken with Ledger Recover, was to actually start. We've been working on Ledger Recover for 3 years. If we had been talking about it for 3 years, there wouldn't have been as big a deal. We would have, we would have released the white paper early. We would have, the security experts would have weighed in ahead of time, not after the fact. And so I think we learned a big lesson there in terms of, how to make those ideals, real, and to really put them out there so that everyone, you can get your feedback in advance instead of ex post facto. So we really take it to heart, and I think you see the difference in the clear signing, the way we brought clear signing to market, just as an example.
Yep. Okay, so the new devices, they're available now, and there's a link in my show notes for you to use my code and go get your device right now. Are these shipping right now? Can I immediately get them?
Flex is shipping now, and STAX will be shipping in September. So we're taking pre-orders now and really trying to gauge demand on STAX as well. I'm really curious how many people want which one of these devices. They're both great devices. There's kind of, we have an over under. Maybe there should be a poly market for it as well. Because we simply don't know the answer. And look, as you know, in crypto, you're either out of stock or you have too many in stock. It really depends on the market. So we'll see what happens in the back half of this year. But we have plenty of Flex in the pipeline. We have a lot of STAX coming for this year. So yes, if you want one, get your order in, and you'll get the very next one we can get to you.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to buy a few of them. So I'm enthusiastic. I can't wait to get mine. So
thanks, man. Super appreciate it. I can't even tell you. Like, it's this summer is catharsis. Like, we've been working on this. I mean, Pascal and Tony and I started talking about, the idea of STAX, all the way back in January of 21. We didn't have the design. We hadn't started building anything, but, that was when we knew we wanted a device with a better UI that was, kind of north of the Nano X, and that was our North Star. So then to go through everything we've been through with STAX, and now to be sitting here with both Flex and STAX, to be honest, it's an outcome that we never could have predicted, because, our prediction would have been, STAX in March of last year. And, we didn't, we asked Santa Claus, but he didn't deliver it to us. And so we worked our ass off. And he dropped something good on us this year. We got them both.
Well, congratulations. I think the end result speaks for itself. It looks awesome.
Thank you so much.
Can't wait to hold it in my hand and see how it feels, but I have sort of a picture in my head, and I'm pretty sure it's probably pretty close. So
yeah, I can't wait for you to have one. Thanks,
well, Ian, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. Very good to see you.
The pleasure is mine, man. Good to see you. It's good to be doing this with you still after all these years.
Yes, indeed. It's been like 30, 35, something like that years.
Exactly.
So, all right. My name is Mark Jeffrey. This has been Hash Rate. We'll see you all next time.